Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood, and my co-host is Robert Paul Johnson. We are the Last Snyders. You can find us on the Liberty Movement's YouTube channel, and you can also find this episode we're going to be doing on Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League over at lastnyders.com/169. That's right, Robert. I said 69.
That makes me happy. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
You did it.
Indeed. I pulled it off. Threw in the 69. So anyway, we're going to introduce our guest for Darkseid here. It's Shaheen from Adelaide, Australia. He's been on for numerous episodes. I think one of the first ones was Die Hard, one of the Christmas movies we did with him. But then he's also done a bunch of DC movies, and we did the original Justice League a couple of years ago. Welcome back to the show, Shaheen. Why don't you just remind people what you do and, tell us about the Snyder Cut real quick, and then we'll get into this.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm a student in Adelaide, Australia, doing engineering. Don't recommend it. And yeah, I've been waiting for this movie for 5 years, ever since BVS came, and finally got it after harassing a company for over 5 years. Follow your dreams, and it pays off. That's all I can say.
No, yeah, I love that. That's like at least one good example of like the market sort of working, sort of functioning. Like this is something that wouldn't have happened in a previous era. But I'm afraid that maybe what the original Snyder Cut might have been different than this, because it feels as though the result of this viral campaign maybe allowed some indulgences to be taken, and that's why we end up with a 4-hour and 2-minute movie.
So the original actual Snyder Cut that he made, so he wrote a script like before Batman v Superman even came out in 2016, and then the studio was like, oh no, you can't do that, and they came kind of meddled in. They came to like a compromise. It's going to be a 3.5-hour movie, which would get a more cut theatrical version. But then like his daughter died because of suicide, and he had to leave. And then then Joss Whedon came in and blah, Frankenstein piece of shit, jail 2017. So,
yeah, indeed. So let's start off with the Google description here, if I can get this thing to work properly. And here we go. So Snyder Cut came out just last week. It's rated R. 2021 is the year, oddly enough. Action/adventure film, 4 hours and 2 minutes. So it's an epic in length, and we're gonna be doing another epic next week with the Anarcho Christian for Easter. We're gonna be doing Ben-Hur, which isn't quite as long as this, but pretty dang close. So this so far is 73%. Thank you, Robert. 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb, 54% Metacritic. Yet 95% of the proletariat like it. The description reads, fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists newfound ally Diana Prince to face an even greater threat. Together, Batman and Wonder Woman work quickly to recruit a team to stand against this newly awakened enemy. Despite the formation of an unprecedented league of heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash, it may be too late to save this planet from an assault of catastrophic proportions. Came out March 18th, 2021. Director Zack Snyder, and it had an additional budget of $70 million on top of the original production that, as you say, Shaheen, that Joss Whedon massacred. They massacred his boy, and it's kind of weird because Joss Whedon, he's like a guy who seemingly accidentally made Firefly into a somewhat amazing and libertarian style series. I don't know how.
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Okay, well, it's actually pretty good, surprisingly, especially with all the stuff that we've seen Joss Whedon do as of late, including some of the controversy surrounding his directing style, especially when it came to Justice League. But anyway, let's go to Robert for your take, and then we'll get Shaheen's take.
Well, it's certainly a more coherent film. I mean, that was one of the big criticisms I had of the original Justice League, was just it seemed that there were missing scenes all over the place. Character motivations didn't seem to really be there. What exactly was happening or why things were happening seemed iffy or muddled or whatever. But I can see that he tried to chop down this huge story into a theatrical cut of some kind. This is definitely better. It's, you get more character development, you get more interconnectedness, things make more sense. There's that connective tissue that actually tells the audience what the hell is happening, why characters are acting the way they are, which is great for audience investment. But I still have, big criticisms in the sense that this is a movie that heavily, heavily, heavily relies on CGI. Just massive. Just like the old Star Wars prequels. You got characters just kind of standing in a green screen. And the action scenes, while fairly better than the theatrical cut, are a whole lot of bombast and things exploding and CGI models smashing into CGI models, almost to the point where there's so much happening that each individual thing happening is dull and mundane, and it just becomes this kind of wash that kind of just washes over you. There's not a real big moment where you're like, oh. It's just a big old pile of pixels on the screen that are all moving around and exploding and falling over and things like that.
In slow motion.
There's a lot of slow motion. There's a lot of, especially when the Amazons are on the screen, there's always that music. I don't know why he does it every single time. It's really, really off-putting. Like, I get it when you want to introduce them, but it's still at the end of the movie when she's doing things, it's just bizarre and kind of like crammed in there. I mean, I generally like Zack Snyder's directing style. I think he's a great visual storyteller. The movie doesn't look that great. It looks better than the theatrical cut for sure. They spent a lot more money on Steppenwolf and the Parademons, and they look better. But it's still kind of, I don't know, the color palette is still really, really dull and dark. Maybe that's just a style choice. I didn't really dig it as much, but, to each his own, I suppose. But the, it's just, I watched this movie in 4 or 5 sittings.
Mm.
It didn't really grab me. I mean, I was already familiar with the story, and I wanted to see the new stuff, but I don't know. I got bored with it. Maybe it was just too long, or it just wasn't engaging enough. But I mean, I got through it. I'm here. I'm ready to talk about it. But I didn't think it was a huge leap forward over the original. I think this is maybe like his 3rd or 4th best film. I don't know. And I think he was just too ambitious, trying to tell too much of a story with too many characters in this massive kind of clusterfuck of a story. I would rather, I know it's called the Justice League, and you got to have this thing where you bring them all together. You're trying to do like the Marvel thing with the Avengers. But for me, they tried to do too much, even with the 4-hour runtime. It was just still, it didn't have a whole lot of cohesion. It felt like, especially the first half, was a series of vignettes. Like, here's something happening with the Flash. Here's something happening with Wonder Woman. Here's something happening with, Cyborg. And then they kind of come together as a team later on. But I don't know. The through line through the movie as the plot didn't grab me. And it seemed like they were just trying to throw the whole DC universe at you. And I ended up just not really caring too much.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to take from that, and there's a lot to take from this movie. And I have a lot of sympathies for some of the things that you're saying. I also watched this over the course of probably 4 or 5 nights, and yeah, it's almost a chore. And I was excited to watch it. I wanted to see the new stuff and see if it made more sense, if what the story was actually going to be a bit more coherent or actually coherent. And I think it is an improvement, of course, over what was before. I think that Whedon's directive was get this thing under 2 hours. It's too dark. Spice it up, add some quippy bullshit, and crank this mother out, and we'll make a shit ton of money because it's, you know, Batman and Superman or whatever. And of course that didn't work, because you're right, it was missing like so much context that it was really hard to know what was going on. And similarly, you know, when we saw with Batman v Superman, and then there was a Snyder cut of that, like the Snyder cut for that like filled in those missing gaps for me. It didn't make it like a great movie, but it made it make more sense. Like you could see why certain things were now happening, whereas in the original cut of that is like, okay, I'm just randomly over here now for some reason. And it seems like there was some of that happening still with Justice League here, the Snyder cut version. And I think that that's just a maybe for this, you know, he was trying to go deeper into each of the characters and develop them. And so you almost have to like cordon them off a little bit and go deeper. It's like there's a lot of like setting the scene and like pacing this that wouldn't normally have been in a movie that would have been a theatrical cut. But I think because he knew he had as much time as he wanted almost to work with here, it allowed him to go into some indulgences, some extravagances, and maybe do things a beat longer than he might otherwise have done, you know, if he was trying to get a 2.5 hour, 3 hour, like Endgame style, you know, theatrical cut, something along those lines. So Shaheen, a lot of stuff to throw at you here. What's your take on Google description, Robert's take, my take? We both seem to be in agreement, Robert and I, that it is an improvement, but it's still not great.
Well, I think it is subjective and depends like what you go in expecting. Like for me, like the whole thing about having all the different characters, like in the first half, and then they all come together in the second half, becomes more coherent. Keep in mind, this was the introductory movie for a lot of those characters. Like they didn't have an origin story the way this universe was meant to go. So Zack's original plan was there was meant to be 5 movies. So Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League 1, 2, then 3. And that was meant to be his whole like huge hero's journey and his big story. So this would have introduced the Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman, and then they would have had spin-off movies going from this going forward. This was kind of like, yeah, it's like a Lord of the Rings style epic, but at the same time it has a lot of setting up for a lot of the characters. That's why at the beginning it's like all these different ponds and all these different like flows of water. They're seemingly unrelated, but as the movie goes on, they all flow into one big lake together. They all kind of come together, all these different elements. Like you see Flash and his dad. You see Cyborg with having the mother box at the beginning. You see the Amazons, the Atlanteans, whatever. And then you see how they all connect together later on in the movie. That's. I mean, Zack doesn't usually take a typical movie telling style, like a storytelling style. He kind of works a bit around it. Maybe that's because he's very influenced. A lot
symbolism.
Yeah, he's influenced a lot by comic stories, and they have a different structure than like movies. Like they don't really exactly follow the 3 acts structure to a T. Like I still think I like that. I watched it in one sitting, by the way. I just sat down like when it was released. I was waiting like to the moment it released. I played it. Then the next day I played it again. So I've seen it twice.
Robert, I think we guessed that in the.
We did. I thought he was going to have watched it about 3 or 4 times, but I'll take that the 2 times.
If I didn't have uni work and engineering work, I would have seen it 3 times at least. But yeah.
Okay, so you find that this is that much of an improvement that you actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's like, I guess for me going in, I kind of knew what to expect because I knew what Zack's style was going to be. It was going to be something similar to how BVS was, except kind of that style applied to like a Lord of the Rings styled epic, and like the visuals, the story was just like, there's a lot of scenes where just like it felt a lot more powerful. And like, because Justice League 2017, that was underwhelming. It's like, oh, the big bad guy's here. Oh, he's boring. They just forget about Steppenwolf in that version. He looks like shit. His motivations aren't explored. We don't even know who he is. He's the most generic, lame character in the world. In this, they make him freaking badass. He like goes around murdering a lot of people. He looks cool. You see his motivations of how he needs to get back to Apocalypse and get on good terms with Darkseid again. And then like he nearly starts crying when Darkseid says you owe Darkseid 50,000 more worlds. And so you see all that. And like going and giving each of the characters a bit of depth, I think works well for this. Because like towards the end, like that final battle I thought was like the climax there was really good.
This is
and a
what
lot
you're
of the
talking about in the Chernobyl.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And with the epilogue, that was more there to like set up the other movies. It sets up Justice League 2 and the Batman, and kind of leaves the characters there. Like, it sets up the Aquaman movie. He's just like, I'm gonna go visit my dad, and he's saying like he's on good terms with the Atlanteans, and now he's going. So if you watch Aquaman right after this, it kind of makes sense.
Okay.
It sets up Cyborg as well, because he's finally accepted his powers, and like his parents died, but he's there, and like you could easily make a Cyborg movie from there.
There will be a Cyborg movie, right? There isn't yet.
I think so. I'm not sure because a bunch of shit went down with the studio because of JL. I think the actor's kind of not in really good standing with the studio right now.
Okay.
Because he's the one that actually at the beginning like got up and talked out against Joss Whedon's abuse while directing, and then a lot of people came out as well. Apparently he was. It's funny because he's like a social justice warrior, male feminist, like arms in arms with Anita Sarkeesian, and then here he comes abusing people on set, especially women. So like makes you think.
Yeah, Whedon made the that
Buffy.
Hillary Clinton campaign ad that had like all the Robert Downey Jr., Don Cheadle, and all those guys, and then they talk about like I forget the style of this, but they're like making fun of itself, breaks the fourth wall a little bit, like, and then it's going to hold on the most important person, and it's like some janitor lady. Remember that one? I'll find it on the notes page. It's it was cringy, but it was all about how important it is to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
For decency.
But yeah, overall, I thought the action was a lot better. Like it was a lot more. This feels like the definitive way to watch Justice League. Like you were never gonna get a normal style movie. Like you shouldn't even expect that from Snyder's DC films. You kind of have to go in there expecting something otherworldly with an open mind, like a different structure, different style. And the color palette, by the way, like the high contrast, low saturation monochrome is kind of his default style. That's just, I don't know. It's what he likes. And,
yeah, we see that with Watchmen, and was he 300? Did he do 300? Yeah,
300, Watchmen, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and the 5 comic movies he's done.
Okay, all right. Yeah, when I was watching this, I noticed there was a lot of like seemingly things to set up other things later on, but then if you know much about like what was going on or what is going on, most of those things aren't going to happen or aren't scheduled to happen any longer. And so almost it's like sad in watching it because you're like, well, now he's setting up this, but that's a canceled project or whatever.
You have to keep in mind a lot of this was made like the principal photography for JL was finished in 2016.
Yeah.
Like December 2016, they finished filming this. And then I think Ben Affleck and Jared Leto came back for that final nightmare scene. Like that was the additional photography they did like in 2020. Just that 1 5-minute scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But the rest was like in the assembly cut from 2016. They just had to do a bit of VFX and like again with the VFX, like any big superhero movie with like crazy otherworldly bad guys is gonna have some like CGI. Like with the parademons, like Batman v Superman had a bit less CGI. It was just Doomsday at the end. Everything else like was practical. Like they actually did blow up the cars and stuff. Whereas in this, I think just would have been way too much because you have all these parademons, you have Steppenwolf, you have all this. So you kind of need to have more CGI, especially when your characters are a lot more epic and not human. like Aquaman, Wonder Woman, you kind of need to have the CGI to have them go and do their shit.
Yeah.
I agree that it's a huge epic and you've got all these otherworldly characters. But I mean, I can't be alone when they're doing their final assault on Steppenwolf's base. And in Man of Steel, it was like a big deal when Superman was like flying around with Zod and they're blowing up buildings, smashing and crashing down. In this movie, they're assaulting Steppenwolf's base, and I couldn't even count how many little CGI buildings just fell down as laser beams were flying around and parademons were flying around and whatnot and that kind of thing. And it took away the weight of any one thing happening when there's just an assault of all this weightless things. Because I mean, at one point I think like the Flash gets hit by a laser, but other than that, is there ever any real peril for the heroes? I don't remember.
Someone almost gets shot, but then Batman saves them. I forget what that was.
Flash,
And my main criticism is there's so many scenes that are just plain boring, where it's just one character walking up to the other character, standing in front of the other character. There's two characters just facing each other, and then they're just going to talk. There's no interacting with the environment because they're just standing on a green screen, and all the surrounding stuff happening was all CGI, and they're just kind of like trying to imagine it, which is fine. You're trying to imagine it. But when you actually make a practical set and the characters could interact with those things, maybe they could be doing something while they're talking and having this conversation. It's just way more interesting than two characters talking. You see it in the prequels all the time. One character will walk up to another character. They'll talk face to face for a minute, and then it'll cut to another scene. And it's just the most boring way to tell a story. This movie intercuts those type of things with like bombastic 3D CGI fights. And like, I thought the best fight movie was the very first time they fight Steppenwolf in the sewers. They, in the original Justice League theatrical cut, I thought the whole thing was kind of crap. But in this one, like each character had a little moment, did a little clever thing. Like the Flash was doing little clever things. Batman was doing like badass Krav Maga moves. Everybody had their little moments to shine and were doing cool little things. They really planned that fight out and did some cool stuff. But then the rest of it just kind of like fell into this big pile of lights and motion and stuff. I thought it was an improvement. Like I said, it's a better movie, and there are parts in it that are better than anything in the theatrical cut. But I have to take it as a whole, and I wish they did more of the practical. That's all I guess I can say. And it would have ballooned the budget, I'm sure. But I think you're being too like ambitious when you want to tell this massive story and you say, well, we don't have the budget to tell this massive story. Like, okay, well, we'll just 3D CGI everything, and then it'll make it affordable. And then you're just people on green screens. I don't know. It's the technology isn't there, and the fact that the characters aren't interacting with the environment just isn't there. So maybe when we all have holodecks, it'll be super cool.
Maybe in 25 years we can get like the definitive super real Justice League. But I think for the time being, it was okay. And for me personally, like the more boring scenes of them just talking or them just like setting up the big story, I can kind of handle that. Maybe because I just love the characters a lot and I'm really invested in in this universe and these versions of the characters. But like, to me, it kind of always felt like every part of the story, like it didn't really feel boring to me, because I'm always waiting like for it to kind of like, the boring stuff kind of pile on, then they just like reach the climax. Like at the end of each chapter had like a mini climax at the end. to kind of reach that, and then they finally have to reach the final climax. Kind of like slowly sets everything up. That's kind of how it felt for me watching it. Like every little boring thing kind of sets up the overall thing. Then at the end, it all just kind of comes tumbling down. And I don't like to dislike any like particular style. Like if something's overwhelming, I'm like, okay, that's a bit different, but I'll try to enjoy it anyway. So I don't know, I thought it was, I liked it.
Well, what is the through line on this? It seems to be like a almost a biblical story of Superman being the protector of planet Earth, and he perishes, inspires Batman. That's what starts the Justice League, and then he's reborn. So it's like
Justice League is Christianity. Is that what you're saying, Daniel?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that this movie is the least philosophical compared to all of the Snyder's other films, Snyder's other DC films. The only real like message I got, other than a couple of archetypes for certain characters, like you get Wonder Woman being the Joan of Arc kind of archetype, like burning in the flame at the end. Because remember there was when they were about to bring Superman back, Cyborg plugs into the mother box and he has like a flash forward, and he like sees Darkseid's invasion and all that shit.
Right.
So yeah, they have a bunch of different archetypes for each of the characters, and Superman's is the Jesus or the savior kind of archetype, like the godly figure that's come down to. I don't think it's that much to look into. I think it's just like an allegory. Like
well,
Snyder
it also comes after Man of Steel, which is all about that, right? So
yeah.
if this is a follow up to that, then you already have that in your, the palette of that in your taste buds.
Like even in those movies, like the whole Jesus thing, I think it kind of sets Superman up as a Jesus archetype. And it's not just like, oh, become a Christian. Like, I don't think that's the message that Snyder's trying to give. I think it's more of a Superman, in this dimension at least, is the archetype of the heavenly savior. Like each of them have different. Like for Batman, there was like a little video they had where it showed all the Justice League members on mother boxes. Have you seen that? If you Google
a
Justice
video
League mother
of them
box
on
trailer,
mother boxes. That's
it's
a trailer.
a 2-minute. Yeah, it's a 2-minute promotional clip, and each of them have like an archetype. Like Superman was Jesus, Cyborg was the Vitruvian Man, the man that Da Vinci wrote. Kind of meant to symbol like the next leap in human evolution, becoming like the ideal kind of
He does have
creature.
4 arms.
Yeah,
multiple times during the movie.
And Flash was like the messenger of the gods, Hermes, because like it's his archetype to like go back in time and try to warn Batman about Darkseid's invasion. That's like what he's meant to do in Justice League 2 and 3. Batman
I thought he was
Saint
warning
Sebastian.
about. I thought he was warning about Lois dying because then Superman goes all injustice on him.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll explain like how that was meant to play out in Justice League 2 and 3 and inside his original script. But Batman was Saint Sebastian because he was the first martyr. So he was actually meant to die at the end. And Wonder Woman was Joan of Arc. I don't know what her archetype is. And Aquaman was Poseidon, the king of the sea. So they all had these different like mythical archetypes, mythical or biblical archetypes that they were meant to kind of play into, and the characters were meant to like develop through that. I think that the main message of this movie, the main kind of story, a philosophical thing, was about like restored faith in humanity and kind of like working together or some sort of unity. That was kind of what it was trying to give.
Right.
Okay. Like the common enemy thing.
Yeah.
Through multiple times. Like we're stronger together. Unity.
Yeah. Something like that.
Build back better.
That's right.
All right. Okay. So if Batman was to die at the end of Justice League 3, I think I would enjoy that, actually. I think that would be like a pretty big deal and kind of awesome.
The plan was in Justice League 2, Lex Luthor and like he sets up. Okay, so I'll go through the whole thing. In this, Deathstroke in this, like how he said, like, oh, and it's an eye for an eye. He volunteered to take down Batman for free, like at the end of the end credit scene. So he was meant to. That sets up the Batman movie, and he was meant to be Batman's equal. And like the actor that played Deathstroke, Joe Manganiello, he actually put in a lot of effort. He learned sword fighting while wearing an eye patch, so he could like adjust his moves, like how a person with one eye would fight. So he like trained properly for it. And like it was meant to be like a psychological thriller. But like this, like Deathstroke was meant to be like a horror movie villain chasing down Batman and killing people close to him, just to get back at him, because he blames Batman for the death of his son. Like that was meant to be like the Batman movie script with Ben Affleck, and then in Justice League 2, which takes place after that, it was meant to be Lex Luthor like sets up a Legion of Doom. So he has Black Manta from Aquaman and a bunch of Remember? Have you seen Wonder Woman 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember Dr. Poison, the evil
the World War I lady.
Yeah, that one. She's alive. She like used the chemicals to keep herself alive. She's like really frail and old, but she's still alive. So Lex Luthor recruits her. He finds the anti-life equation and he takes it to Riddler, and Riddler solves it, so he has it. And then when Darkseid comes and attacks, he gives it to Darkseid. And then Superman goes to fight Darkseid, but Darkseid kind of like Lex tells him, "Hey, if you kill Lois Lane, that'll destroy his spirit." So he goes to the Batcave and lasers Lois and kills Lois. And then Superman's spirit's broken, so he succumbs to the anti-life equation, which is like a way to control some life. Not everyone's susceptible to it. Like in the Flash forward, we see Batman, Joker, and all them. They can't be mind controlled. But pretty much the rest of humanity is mind controlled by Darkseid.
Now, is that nightmare scene, is that the same as in Batman v Superman, where there's the Superman Nazis?
Yeah, that's the same. It probably takes place a little bit before it. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah.
Okay, all right.
And so the plan was like Dr. Poison kills Wonder Woman and all of the Amazons on Themyscira. Black Manta and Ocean Master, they go down to Atlantis and they kill Aquaman. So and then Batman, Flash, and Cyborg and all them escape. And then like Justice League 3 was meant to take place in the Nightmare world, where they have to try to escape from Superman and all the Nazi Superman soldiers while capturing while taking some sort of they steal another mother box and they bring it down so they can power something called the Cosmic Treadmill, so they can have Flash go back in time. And the thing is, like, there's 2 windows where they can go back in time to, and they were meant to pick one, but then Batman's like, okay, don't pick this one, whatever you were going to pick, because you did that like before, and you came and warned me too early, so pick the other one. So that's why that explains the whole Flash thing in Batman v Superman, because remember, he comes to warn Bruce in one of the scenes. Yeah. So like then he goes to Justice League 2 and tells Batman to save Lois right before Darkseid's about to attack. And yeah. Thing is that dimension, the original script was a little controversial because after Superman died, Batman and Lois had a bit of a romance. And right before Lois died, her and Batman were having an argument, and Lois says, "Well, it's not your child," because she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not like this anymore. It is Superman's kid in the current Zack Snyder's Justice League, but before, like in the script, like in 2014 when they came up with it, it was meant to be, it's actually Batman's kid. And so when Flash comes back to like Batman, he tells him, "Lois is lying, you are the father." So when Darkseid goes to kill Lois, Batman jumps in front of it. He gets hit. He doesn't die, but then he gets weakened and he's like close to death. But then all the armies of the like Superman doesn't become evil, and I think it was all the armies of Earth, the entire Green Lantern Corps, the Amazons, Atlanteans, and all the heroes, and a bunch of new heroes as well. They all kind of join forces, and like it's like a repeat of the history lesson. Because remember, there was like a historic battle in Justice League. It was meant to be like another version of that, but like in modern day. And at the end, Batman comes with a gun, with a special like god-killing gun, and kills Darkseid, but then he dies himself. And that was meant to be it.
All right. Well, based on what you just described, I'd sign up for that. Sounds kind of awesome.
Yeah. Now,
right now,
these scripts that exist, were these approved by the studio? Like they bought all these scripts?
See, these weren't exactly scripts. They were on whiteboards. They were kind of like storyboard concepts or ideas. And apparently Zack now has new ones, more updated ones. These aren't really in use. Something similar is in use, but they've changed some things around. Thing is, Warner Brothers came out yesterday, about a day ago, and they came and said, Ann Sarnoff, the CEO of Warner Media or something, she came and said something like, "Oh, we have like Zack told his trilogy. We're glad that Zack like finished his trilogy, but now we're going to move on from that dimension." It's like, what the fuck? It's 5 movies, not 3. And can you really watch this and think that's the end of a trilogy? Like, it sets up so much. Darkseid's invading, got all these characters. Like, that's not the end of anything.
Right.
So we're doing on Twitter, everyone's doing a restore the Snyderverse. Used to be release the Snyder Cut, now it's restore the Snyderverse. It reached 1 million tweets just an hour or two ago. So we have that.
Wow, in real time. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. I think getting the Snyder Cut released was a lot harder than getting Justice League 2 will be. Because now that we already have this, the next level, and a lot of people at least like it. And like, keep in mind, you don't compare this to Endgame, you compare this to Avengers 1. Like, something this level of epicness, I think. Like, we can just imagine what JL3 would be like.
Yeah, it does seem like it'd be a bit of a letdown if they just drop it here, because you're right, it does set up so much. It almost sets up too much, and it goes back to the indulgences, I think, that wouldn't have otherwise been there had they originally cut this with Snyder back in 2017 or whenever. But
how do you measure this movie's success? You can obviously views, sure, but does HBO
and they went higher in sales as well,
and then divide it by the total number of views of everything on their platform, and then they're like, well, this is how much money this movie made.
I'm not really sure how streaming makes money, like how Netflix makes money or HBO Max, but I think it's total subscriptions made because of this, because there was a massive jump up. Like the previous record holder was Wonder Woman 84, and this kind of beat that by, I don't know, at least an extra 50%, if not double. And apparently Warner Brothers, like, there's 2 divisions. There's one, Warner Brothers Films, and then HBO Max. They're kind of like 2 different sub-companies inside Warner Media. So Warner Brothers Pictures wants to move away from like the Snyderverse and focus on, I don't know, the new Suicide Squad movie or a new Harley Quinn film or fucking whatever. They're just throwing whatever they can at the wall, Marvel style, to feel like, oh, see what hits, see what sticks. And yeah, they want to have, they say they want to appeal to a broader audience, and like pretty much they just want to make Marvel movies. That's what they want. Whereas HBO Max has seen the potential for this. This is HBO Max's #1 movie. It had more viewers like on its opening night than a lot of other films ever did on HBO. And that wasn't even like a holiday or a weekend. It was on a Thursday night.
Yeah. I could see this translating into a Game of Thrones style multi-season cliffhanger after cliffhanger episode type of serialization, which I almost wish they had. I think when you were last on, you said that they were talking about making this into a 5-part or 6-part like episodic.
Yeah.
And I think that had they had the material to leave you on cliffhanger notes on each of those to like make you want to watch that next one, I think that would have been great. But to Robert's point earlier, you're kind of bored on each one.
This was already made like as a movie, like back in 2016. It was going to be hard to change it too much. Like the only thing new they did was that nightmare scene in the future.
Wasn't the Flash scene with that girl? Wasn't that new? Or I read somewhere that Snyder,
was the original.
Okay, I'd heard that Snyder like directed that remotely.
I think there was one scene he directed with Ezra Miller remotely. I'm not sure if it was that scene exactly, but it was on the set of Fantastic Beasts, and he just did it via Zoom. But no, that scene with Iris was in the original, because there was pictures of that coming back from like 2017, 2018. Like, they already had that. Yeah,
I mean, that scene, that it's a vignette, to Robert's point earlier, and it like as its own thing, it's kind of fun. and cool and interesting, and it sort of introduces the slow motion effect that we see inundated later on for the remaining 3 hours. But it's cute, and it has some tension and some buildup and some like, I can't believe this truck driver's like still driving 40 miles an hour through this area trying to pick up his
burger. Yeah.
So I mean, that was some of the humor and stuff that
I thought, like, when he first picks up a hot dog, I thought he was nabbing it for himself. I'm like, what the fuck? And then he gives it to I'm like, okay, that's smart. I thought he was just taking it to eat himself.
Yeah, that was a cute little touch that I thought was missing with a lot of the rest of the film, honestly. I realized Barry Allen is kind of the comedic relief of the movie, and I thought a lot of his shtick and jokes really fell flat. But in that scene, he kind of shined as I really saw him as a character in that part. A lot of the other times, he just felt a little bit forced. I don't know. I based on that, I would probably watch a Flash movie, but a big problem with my DC, I generally enjoy DC stuff, but these characters are so stinking powerful. The Flash is this god character that can run faster than the speed of light. He can just touch people and they like explode backwards because of the kinetic force and the momentum and whatever that he generates. Superman is like essentially God. Jesus character. He can't be hurt.
He's like all of them combined.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like the bad guys ever bring kryptonite, so he's like essentially unstoppable. Wonder Woman's essentially almost Superman level. Aquaman, for some reason, in this version is also almost Superman level, whereas before he was more of hey, I control the oceans and the fish and the stuff like that. I can talk to fish, and he had his own thing, but now he's just kind of like this generic, powerful guy. I don't know. I have a hard time relating to DC characters as much as I do to Marvel characters, in that the Marvel characters are more human. They have more flaws. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I think that DC has some character work to do when they're going to develop a movie. They really need to focus on the human elements, which is where I think they did a better job in this film, especially showing Barry as a regular guy, just trying to struggle on. He's got to eat a bunch of stuff all the time. He's interested in this girl. Lois and Clark's relationship. That's a strong point in the film. Those are the moments where Cyborg.
He has to deal with, like, at the beginning of the movie, he's pissed off, he's depressed. He has to deal with being made like that,
basically a monster, right? And he feels he's inhuman.
Yeah, then it's only towards the end of the movie where he accepts for who he is. Like, if you remember the scene where he tears apart the Trinity, he goes inside the Unity, and he sees like his family, and then he sees himself as normal, like in his football jersey or the varsity jacket, and then he switches into normal Cyborg. So I think, like, at that point he accepts who he really is.
Well, wasn't that the Mother Box like using his weakness to deceive him?
Pretty much, yeah. Then he sees himself as the Cyborg and says, like, I'm not broken and I'm not alone, and then destroys the Unity.
Yeah, he actually has probably the best arc in the film. I don't know if anybody else really does, but he certainly does.
Yeah, there are a few things that stand out to me, though, when his dad's talking about the abilities that he has, that he's been built with, and that he can break any encryption and control anything almost at a whim.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like those are maybe over promises, because when he's actually like trying to do these things, he seems to struggle, like getting the plane flying or breaking into the security at the Superman ship or things like that. It seems to take him a little bit longer. And sure, I they probably want to like have it be difficult because they are so super powerful, but it was just weird to have him, he's presented as he can do this so easily, and then he struggles to do it several times. So it just didn't seem to like line up with how they presented him.
Maybe that's his potential. Like he could potentially, like in a few years' time, be like that, where he can like with a snap of the fingers do whatever. But now he's still developing and learning.
Okay.
Maybe he hasn't fully matured his powers yet. Maybe that's
okay.
One thing that may seem like a bit of a nitpick, but I really don't think so, is during the scene where Cyborg, they just resurrected Superman, and they're all standing there in front of the destroyed statue, and they're about to have the big fight. And the thing that sets it off is Cyborg's self-defense sensors or whatever go off, and he can't control himself anymore, and he starts attacking Superman. I thought that this was going to play a part later on where Cyborg's fighting all these cyber demons and whatever, and it's like, well, that seems like a threat too. But he doesn't. He just is in control of himself the whole time. And also when Steppenwolf is around, it's like it seems like those defense systems should just be automatic. And he should be struggling to control himself. And he's just going crazy being Mr. Cyborg Death Terminator guy. I thought that that's the direction they were going to go and really play callback to that. But instead, it seemed more like just an excuse to have a Superman fight in the middle of the movie. And that's disappointing.
I actually did think of this like back in 2017 when I saw the film. Like it kind of, I had one idea about it. It's just a theory. It's so his human side didn't want to attack Superman and didn't see Superman as a bad guy. So his robot side analyzed the threat and then took over because he realized the robot side realized that the human side wasn't going to do anything. But with Steppenwolf and like the parademons, the human side knows that they're the bad guys and is open to attacking them. So the robot side doesn't like go into autopilot to take over and force it. That was kind of.
I mean, I see you kind of like ex post facto justifying it and making sense. I can feel you.
Like obviously, like
coherent.
Yeah, obviously, like they do need a reason. Like the film isn't like perfect, and a lot of times you do have to like do something to cause the scene to go forward. And I kind of just like, yeah, well, we needed the scene to happen. Like the Superman fight did have to happen. Like,
yeah, it would have been nice if it had been something like more clever or more like incidental, like or seemingly innocent, and then it triggers this whole thing, like total misunderstanding.
Something that paid off later.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so there's another thing that I thought was a little bit weird, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but did Alfred reintroduce himself to many of the characters, like towards the end of the movie, and these characters he already knew? Like, doesn't he interact with them earlier, and then later on, he's like meeting them for the first time?
I think in this, Alfred only. So in 2017, they go after the first fight in the sewers. They go back to the Batcave, and it's really stupid in that because they go to the Batcave, but then they're in Wayne Aerospace, and you can actually see the windows. So the windows are there, whereas it's just they're supposed to be in the Batcave in 2017. Whereas in this, after the first fight, they regroup at the hangar. Alfred's not there. The first time, so Wonder Woman has met Alfred, but the rest haven't. I think Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman met him for the first time at the Batcave.
Okay, I thought that in this that Alfred was there at the hangar, and that Cyborg was saying that he could fix this thing, or he could sense that it wanted to fly, or that he could fix it in a few minutes given enough time. And then later on, it seems as if Cyborg's meeting Alfred for the first time again. And maybe I'm misremembering it. I'm not going to go back and watch all 4 hours to find the
4 hours.
The scene that I thought was there.
Alfred was there at the beginning in the hangar when he was making the gauntlets, and they shot him with the energy thing. But the second time they were there, I don't think he was there. He was just at the Batcave. Yeah.
Now, was there also a thing about Alfred and about Batman? Traditionally, Alfred is Batman's voice of reason. He's the one who assesses the situation and gives Bruce like the fatherly wisdom and advice. In this movie, Alfred's wrong every time. And Batman is the one who has the fatherly wisdom. Is that intentional? Because this is the older, more grizzled Batman who's seen a bunch of shit and has sort of like surpassed sort of the advice from Alfred.
I mean, I guess I kind of just saw Alfred as being like precautionary. Like he's telling him, like, "Oh, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Don't do this. It's dumb. Like you could like this is too far." And then Batman's like, "Look, no, like things are really bad. We need to have faith that things will be good. We need to kind of go forward anyway." That's the kind of feeling I got. Not necessarily that Alfred was coming at it from a fatherly sort of wisdom advice, or more of a precautionary friend to friend, like, "Oh, dude, what the fuck are you doing? This is kind of stupid." And Batman's like, "Actually, look, I'm doing this." And yeah, like this is definitely a Batman that, because usually Batman, the older he becomes more rugged and more like angry. This is an older version of Batman that is like he went through his angry phase. Because the thing is that what I like about these movies, it's implied that Batman, when he first started, like he had Robin, he had everything, and he was kind of generally more happy, more kind of more of a normal Batman, like a Batman animated series style. Then Robin dies, divorces Catwoman, blah blah, and then like Superman comes, Metropolis burns down, so he becomes like really angry and loses shit in Batman v Superman, almost crosses the line, he kills here and there, and then after Superman dies and like, in jail and this, it kind of sets his character as like he went down, now he's gone up, so like he's in a much better place. He has faith in the good of humanity, as opposed to being like super cynical and angry. And then you can see that in the final scene as well. Because like in Batman v Superman, the first time he sees Superman, he's just angry. He's like, "Oh, this guy's a threat. I need to kill him." Whereas in this, he sees Martian Manhunter at the end. He's like, "Well, I'm glad to have you." And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go back to sleep now." He just walks out, like, "Hey, can I help you?" Like as if he's like a fucking mailman. So I think, but then in the nightmare world, where like the world does actually go to shit, he becomes even worse than he was in Batman v Superman. He carries guns. He's like threatening to kill Joker and all that. So then when he finally goes back in time and saves like Lois and Superman, he's kind of saving himself as well. He's not letting himself denigrate. He's not letting the world turn like so terrible and overrun by Darkseid, and so he himself doesn't go back down all the way into the abyss.
Okay. All right. I'll buy that. And this Martian Manhunter thing.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he's in here a couple of times, right? Like he is Superman's mom. Weirdly.
Impersonating her for some reason.
Yeah. I think he was just trying to tell Lois to get back in the world and stop being such a shut-in.
Okay. All right. And then there's like a subtle hint that Lois is pregnant there. We see this pregnancy test thing, right?
Mm.
But they don't really like call too much attention to it.
Not really.
But it didn't seem like Lois really had much to do. Like, what are we trying to get her back into the world for? And once Superman was resurrected, why does his mom just show up hours away? Just shows up right when they're there. It's weird. It was so weird.
I always assumed Lois called her and told her, "Hey, Clark's alive. Come here."
Okay.
Yeah, that didn't really bother me too much. And I hate to be the negative guy. I know it seems like Daniel and I are like just piling on this movie, and Shaheen's like defending it, white knighting the movie.
Actually, I've got a criticism myself, actually, but I'll say it after you go.
Okay, so one of my big criticisms of these characters is that they're all fairly generic, except for, I suppose, Flash and Cyborg. I think Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Superman, and Batman are all really quite generic, and they don't really bring a whole lot of uniqueness to the team dynamic. The thing that I really, maybe this is just a personal preference, but I've always understood the reason why Batman is such a badass is because he will analyze a situation, he'll analyze his opponent, he will collect using his detective powers, his detective skills, and he will figure out his opponent's weaknesses and use that against them in a very effective manner. In this movie, he's just like a rich guy with a bunch of toys and he shoots guns. And he brought the team together. So he's like team captain, but then he just has these machines and he shoots guns. In I think any other version of Batman, he probably would have been really interested in getting a hold of a parademon and dissecting it or figuring out what makes it tick and you developing some kind of weapon to use against them. I think that would have been more interesting. Maybe he's carrying around like a sound gun or something, or a vibration gun at the end, and he's actually providing something that the rest of the team couldn't provide and be more valuable in that sense. Because otherwise, at the very end, he's just kind of just running around shooting guns and killing parademons with just regular guns and using their own guns, and it just ended up being less interesting. So go ahead.
I get how you feel, like what you mean by that. And would have been cool because
I just have a real quick thing. There's this like cartoon version of Justice League where Batman is like confronted getting kicked out or whatever, and he reveals to them that he has discovered each of their weaknesses, and so if they harm him, then they would each get destroyed as a result. So it was like this dead man switch that he created. I'm gonna try to find that video, put it on show notes page, but it's pretty awesome. It's from a movie called Justice League Doom. I'll just say what happens in that. Pretty much Batman over the years, and there's a comic on it called Tower of Babel. Over the years, he's developed contingency plans for each of the League members, but then some bad guys like come in and steal the plans. Then they use the plans to pretty much nearly kill all the members. Then they have to regroup and they take down the bad guys. And then at the end, they're like, how did they know our weaknesses? Batman's like, the plans are mine. So then they have a vote on whether or not Batman can stay as a League. But then like when they go to vote, and then when they go to tell Batman what the result was, they see Batman left. He at the end of that movie or that story, he quits the League. But like, so in like the comics and like traditional, like if you watch the animated series of Batman, the detective stuff's like pretty much only half of it. The other half is that Batman is pretty much a soldier. This, I think, emphasized a lot more on the soldier part of Batman, which again, like, would have been cool to see a lot of detective stuff, but to see like cool soldier Batman with guns and cars and stuff is like, I like it as well. And yeah, about the whole generic stuff,
I like it. It just makes him unique, you know, in a movie where there's a bunch of tough guys all brawling and fighting and whatever. It doesn't set him apart other than, hey, he's the guy that had the jet that brought them all there. You know what I mean?
I think in this movie, like the way I feel, the uniqueness of the characters comes from their personalities and like kind of their story rather than just their abilities. Like with Wonder Woman, she was an Amazonian, away from the world for so long. Now she's like some sort of archaeologist or like arts sort of thing at a museum. She's very sophisticated, very kind of to herself. Aquaman's kind of like the rugged guy that goes around to places, helps random people in villages and places out. He's kind of I don't know, bit of a dick, but in a fun way. I feel like Aquaman was a lot more likable in this than Justice League. In that, it kind of seemed like even at the end, like, even at the end of that, it kind of felt like he still disliked everyone. Whereas in this, it kind of felt like he actually liked them and that they became a group of friends at the end. Whereas in that, it kind of felt like they were kind of forced to work together and they kind of low-key hated each other. So, and like Cyborg and Flash, they each have like a unique story and kind of personality archetype that they follow. But then like when it comes to action, they all pretty much, I guess, are just super beings kind of brawling it out. Which I guess isn't really that different from Marvel movies, because at the end of them, like they're pretty much just brawling it out as well. I think of like the end of Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, at some point there's going to be a big punch up.
I think that's what like a lot of team up movies kind of suffer from. When you have like a lot of characters in a movie, it's hard to focus on the uniqueness of any one given character. Kind of have to give like glimpses of each of their uniquenesses, and I think that's what Zack was trying to do by like setting up like scenes at the beginning of the movie with each of them, like in different scenes, and then having them come together.
Otherwise it's just a Royal Rumble.
Yeah, so a lot of those characters, and like their arcs and scenes. You only get glimpses of them, and so this was meant to kind of introduce a lot of the characters and give you a glimpse of them. And then the solo movies is meant to kind of like the spin-offs are meant to build more upon the characters.
Right, because Wonder Woman came out right after or right before Justice League,
right before this, after
and then
BVS,
Aquaman was right
Justice League.
after.
Yeah, and we were meant to get Cyborg and Flash after it as well, and Batman, and then Justice League 2 and 3. And Justice League 2 and 3 were meant to be more Superman stories.
Okay.
At least 3. One of them was meant to be more for like a Superman movie. So we pretty much got, if we watch the whole thing, like we got all the different movies, we would have had a very fully fleshed out like League, and the characters would have all been in depth. And so this was kind of like, it's even in the comics as well. Like when the New 52 happened in DC Comics in 2011, their first title was just a Justice League story, and it's very similar to this. It's Darkseid invading, and then like the team kind of joins together. And Cyborg is introduced the same way, and like Batman and Superman kind of fight at the beginning of that as well, because they just meet. That's the first time they meet. And Wonder Woman's new to, but the difference is Wonder Woman is new to man's world, so she doesn't really get everything too well. And Green Lantern's there as well, and Flash, but it's virtually the same story. Parademons and Darkseid instead of Steppenwolf. But it's virtually the same story. So that introduces everyone, but then the stories kind of take place right after that. The comic run began right after Justice League.
Okay,
so I think this is kind of trying to do a similar thing. Like they use just like Man of Steel sets up Superman in the world. Batman v Superman kind of elaborates more on it and sets up Justice League. Justice League introduces all the characters, and then the spin-offs kind of stuff, and like the origins of each of the characters and stuff stems from Justice League onwards. And then we get Justice League 2 and 3, and that kind of finishes. It wasn't meant to be as extensive as the MCU. Meant to be like 5 main movies that Zack made, and then a bunch of random spin-offs and character stories made by other directors that kind of like built to it. It wasn't meant to last like 10 or 15 years. It was meant to be like done in 5 or 6.
Okay,
the studio kind of fucked it up.
Now there still is an Aquaman 2 or something coming out, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure how canon Aquaman actually is to this. I mean, you can kind of think that something very similar to that happened in this, because with like the way it's going, like we're not sure if there's no cohesion in the overall like films, so we don't know like is Birds of Prey canon, is Shazam canon to this? There's no knowing, because Warner Brothers says that Justice League 2017 is canon, whereas well, like fuck that, we want the Snyderverse. So I like to think that things very similar to the main DCEU happen in the Snyderverse as well, but they're a bit different.
So I know we've got the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, which kind of looks almost like a horror movie or something like that. And actually, I'm pretty excited to see it. I don't know how you feel, but I think it looks like an interesting take on the story, on the character. What else? I mean, I know there's another Suicide movie planned. What else is on the docket? Is there any, like you said, they're not planning on continuing the Snyderverse, but they've got to be moving forward with these characters, obviously. And they're not going to leave them on the shelf.
Apparently, they're planning a Superman reboot. They want to like get rid of Henry Cavill, they said, which is a stupid idea, especially like now, because I think he's more popular and accepted now as Superman than he ever was before. With Batman, so we're kind of hoping that they can continue the Snyderverse on HBO Max. Even though they say they wouldn't, we can like, they also said they would never release the Snyder Cut, and look where we are now. So if we harass them more on Twitter, they'll eventually give in. So we're hoping like, and we don't really want much. It's just Justice League 2 and 3. The original David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad 1, because he made a cut as well, which was massacred the same way Justice League was. So that, and hopefully a Ben Affleck versus Deathstroke like miniseries. To like not a proper movie to compete with like Robert Pattinson's Batman, because that's not DCEU. That's a black label. That's like its own thing, kind of like how Joker was its own thing. Yeah, it's like its own dimension, kind of just hidden away from everything else.
Well, isn't one of the things with the Flash is that there can be multiple dimensions or times that you could
like the
sort
multiverse.
of claim all of these are together, sort of.
Yeah, in a way. I'm not sure how they're going about it, because I think that the Flash movie's kind of all over the place. A lot of recasts. I don't know what the hell they're doing with that.
I heard.
Are they planning on doing Flashpoint or something else?
I have no idea. I don't really follow. I haven't followed that in a while. I think they're doing a Flashpoint multiverse style story. Thing is, about Flashpoint, like the actual movie Flashpoint or the comic.
I know like he changed time and reset a whole bunch of stuff.
So he goes back in time and stops his mother from being murdered, but then that kind of creates like an alternate timeline where Superman didn't fall in Smallville; he fell in Metropolis. So there was a big meteor attack, and then like Superman got taken in by the government, and he's kept in like a prison under red sun radiation. So he's weakened, and no one even knows who Superman is. He's like a prisoner. Cyborg's a government agent, like working with the CIA or FBI or whatever. So Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Wonder Woman's Queen of Amazons, Aquaman's King of Atlantis. They're at war with each other and against Earth. So it's like a 3-faction crazy war going on. And it's Bruce Wayne that gets shot in the alley. So his parents live, but he dies. And then so his dad becomes Batman and his mom becomes Joker.
All from Barry Allen saving his mom.
All because, yeah. And then so he has to like go back in time and like prevent himself from saving his mom.
That sounds interesting, actually. That sounds like one of those, like, be careful what you wish for, you fuck with the timeline, you're going to, like, destroy everything.
No. Even from, like, 2016, like, when I saw BVS, I was hoping to get, because, Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays Thomas Wayne in that, in the opening scene.
Right.
Yeah. So I was always hoping he would play Flashpoint Batman, the kind of Thomas Wayne Batman who, like, goes around killing everyone, has guns, and
he's really brutal, and
he's like an anti-hero, almost like a proper villain. He's like crazy. He's like worse than Ben Affleck's Batman ever was with killing.
What about the Michael Keaton Batman? He was killing people all over the place in Batman '89.
Yeah, no, he fucking bombed Ace Chemicals.
Yeah,
blew up the whole damn building. Didn't know who was in there or not.
Yeah,
crazy motherfucker.
So, Shaheen, I know we're getting low on time for you.
I've still got a little bit left.
Okay, good. Are there any other notes you wanted to point out? I want to bring up the bat carrier thing that he can't get to fly or whatever. They treat it like it's a super important thing, but it seems pointless and dumb. Can't all of them pretty much fly, and doesn't Batman have other ways to get there? And also with the mother boxes all together, do that portal loop thing that Steppenwolf can go into. How do they possibly have the time to even get into a functional Harrier jump jet thing to fly to Russia to get there in time? It seems bizarre. Like the mother boxes, Steppenwolf is like, boom, boom, I've got him here. Let's make the Unity, and
Flash could have been there in about 2 seconds.
Right.
I think that the Unity takes a while to kind of form together. Like even like in the flashbacks, like the war with Darkseid, you saw like they had the Unity together, but then they still had the time to have the entire war and separate it. So it's kind of like the Unity doesn't happen instantaneously. It takes a couple, like they say that we only have a couple of hours. When Steppenwolf Groom Troops and takes the last one, they're like, oh shit, we only have like a couple hours. You have to use the heat satellites and see where it is. The helicarrier, I guess, I don't know. It was out of that team. Out of that team, only Cyborg could fly. I mean, Wonder Woman can't fly.
Yes, you can.
Batman can't. Not in this.
Wonder Woman 84. 1984, she learned how to fly. That's canon.
That's not canon to Snyder.
Canon.
And also, I don't know.
And Flash can just walk on water, right? Like he can just
pretty much. And Aquaman can
walk
swim,
on
but
pretty much anything.
I don't know. I think that was just a high-speed way for them to get there all together as a team, while they could like plan out.
It seemed like a manufactured problem that didn't have any real payoff or anything. It was just like didn't make any sense.
I don't know.
You know what would be cool?
I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
It would have been cool if Batman were like, "How does Steppenwolf do these boom tubes?" And he like figured out how to cobble it together, MacGyver style, and then they just boom tube there.
It would have been pretty cool.
It would have been cool if the whole fact that the airplane
they had to get the Batmobile
the airplane. If they had to get the Batmobile, sure, but it felt like there was no payoff. So like the setup of them not figuring out how to fly it, and then Cyborg just comes along and he's like, "Oh, I guess I figured out how to fly it." There wasn't a dramatic moment, any kind of a payoff. It was just, Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, I figured out how to do it. Okay, so we can go now.
We can go now.
It just seemed weak. It was like, what was that? What am I looking at? I don't know.
think it was
I mean,
meant
I know
to be
you're.
a strong scene.
It
To
wasn't
me, it
supposed
just
to,
felt
like.
to me, it kind of just felt like they needed a reason to like be able to go there, and like the reason they went on it was so they could kind of go as a team and to plan their assault and to take the Batmobile there. And I don't know, apparently, like that helicarrier would have been one of the fastest like hyper airplanes to get them there. I guess faster
It just
than a
felt like
commercial.
probably, but it just felt like they were trying to do too much. It didn't seem like it was a fully baked idea. It seemed like he was doing too much in the script. I know you're a fan of there's like
Too much
writing and all that stuff, but it was
kind of too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I prefer a more simple story, interestingly told, as opposed to this massive sweeping scope of a story that doesn't make a ton of sense. But I don't know.
I don't know. I think
it's fine. There's room for both.
Yeah, well,
now,
I think what Shaheen had described is interesting, and if you stick just to those elements that you talked about, Shaheen, that were like penciled out, that's plenty of content. They don't need to do all this extra stuff.
Yeah, I like the extra stuff. They kind of feels like a definitive version of it. Like, even if it kind of makes you sit down through a bit more fluff. But one criticism that I did have, and I kind of thought about this for a while. So Darkseid invades Earth, has the 3 mother boxes, and then he loses. The mother boxes turn off. When they turn on again, they turn on because Cyborg's dad wants to rebuild him. Mm-hmm. That's why they wake up. But they don't call back because they sense Superman's presence. When Superman dies, they call back. I thought, like, shouldn't Darkseid know that the mother boxes calling to him are from the world that he lost the anti-life equation on?
Yeah, because there was that that talk about this infinite number of worlds, and it's like a mystery as to which one. So
but my theory about that is there aren't 3 mother boxes. There's like, because in the comics, pretty much a mother box is like a supercomputer. So like a lot of characters, like in the New Gods comics by Jack Kirby, every character kind of has their own mother box, like all the New God characters. So there's probably a lot of mother boxes out there. And if you bring 3 of the specifically designed ones together, you can destroy the world. So Darkseid probably has like hundreds of mother boxes. And a lot of the worlds he takes over, he doesn't do himself anymore. He sends a lot of parademons with mother boxes to go there and destroy the world. And for like he destroyed 100,000 worlds. Probably out of them, like let's say 1,000 worlds that he attempted, or his parademons attempted to destroy, they had to like retreat. The worlds where he didn't go himself, and it was just parademons, some of them lose, and the mother boxes get left behind. So when they wake up and call back, they don't know if it's Earth or if it's some random other world. So Steppenwolf goes to this, and then discovers, oh, this must have been that one. That's kind of the way I think about it.
Okay. Yeah, because it would seem like if this is the one that they lost on to the combined forces of the Athenians and Atlanteans and men and the Green Lanterns and all that, then they would know, okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
It would be like,
unless
it would stand out.
Unless there's a shit ton more mother boxes out there. Because otherwise, if there were only 3, then the moment this calls out, Darkseid himself will be like, that's it. That's the mother box world. He would have just came down.
Okay. Now, does that sort of set up why Superman's ship says, "Hey, don't reactivate this thing"?
That was. I think that's alien technology, and it's explained that Cyborg's dad, he could kind of tell that they were both kind of similar in properties. They were alien, highly advanced, so they could kind of read the mother box. I think the Superman ship could tell that was, I don't know, like an evil force. It could be used for a lot of evil.
It didn't seem to like. He was warning them not to like charge this thing up and revive Superman, but then nothing seems to have resulted from that other than Superman being pissed off and amnesiac.
What pretty much, like, I'm not sure if it's an Easter egg or if the ship could actually see the future. I think that the ship it's kind of like a bit of both. The ship was warning them about like how dangerous the mother box could be and how Superman could become like could lose his shit and potentially like fuck a lot of stuff up. But at the same time, Cyborg sees into the future, and then the ship actually says the future has taken root in the present. So I think at that's the moment where the Nightmare universe and Darkseid's invasion becomes inevitable. Like he sees the future and like Darkseid killing Aquaman
Okay, so
and Wonder
that's
Woman.
the moment Barry Allen
Lois.
saves his mom.
I don't think not necessarily that.
Just
That
as
was
as the flashpoint.
Yeah.
When Barry Allen saves his mom, that's what results in all these different alternate
Oh,
things happening.
Oh no. This is a different bad timeline. This is in that with Flashpoint, he goes back in time and then like all of history kind of changes.
Right,
Whereas
right.
in this,
And I'm not saying that this is that. I'm saying this is like that in that
oh yeah,
when they
yeah,
do
yeah.
this alters that future and makes
Yeah, pretty much. This kind of so at this until this point, a lot of like the future, anything could have been possible. And maybe they win, maybe they lose, blah blah. They probably would have lost against Steppenwolf, but then bringing Superman back and like the world's kind of like things are in play at a way that it's inevitable for an invasion for Darkseid to happen. At this point, there was no stopping it. Like that's the one thing that the final nail in the coffin that kind of is like, yeah, there's no getting away from Darkseid now. You're gonna have to like fight him. He's gonna invade.
But had they not reinvigorated Superman, Darkseid would have invaded.
It would have happened anyway, but this kind of solidified that particular future of evil Superman. Superman's alive, Lois dies, Darkseid invades, Aquaman and Wonder Woman die, and Superman becomes evil.
Yeah.
Now, since Snyder knew that these Justice Leagues 2 and 3 weren't going to happen, I'm curious why he put in that epilogue with all those setups for those future movies. Maybe is he just showing all the stuff he made?
Like one of them, yeah, he's showing everything that he made. He might as well, and a lot of this was made back in 2016. And with the Nightmare scene, he says that he didn't want us to not have an interaction between Jared Leto and Ben Affleck's characters. He wanted us to have a little something to see them interact, at least talk to each other. And I don't know, maybe deep down he kind of hopes it'll create more. If it sets up like a cliffhanger, or it could set up hype, and people could call for Justice League 2 to happen.
That's what it felt like to me. Yeah. Like he was saying, "Hey, everybody, look how cool this is! Come on, let's get it going." But I can't imagine that they're going to bring the whole gang back together with all. I mean, I'm sure Momoa would be down for it, and probably Gal Gadot and Cavill. But I don't think you got Affleck anymore, do you? Or maybe do you? I don't know if he's contractually obligated.
He came back because remember he hated Justice League because of the reshoots. He liked working. He went on interviews that he loved Batman v Superman. He loved working with Zack, but because of the reshoots, that was just too much. Getting all the bad influence, all the reshoots, to have to do like, and then like having his Batman movie canceled, like that kind of was just too much for him. So I think at this point, given how much people have like turned and love his character, because back then almost everyone hated it, but now a lot more people are like, okay, it's not that bad, and they kind of at least enjoy it more.
He did grow on me in this one.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people that criticize like him killing, like when he says Faith, Alfred Faith, they kind of like, okay, yeah, that is cool, Batman. So then, yeah, a lot. Yeah, I think pretty much all of them will be down to come back after this, the success of this.
To your point and to Daniel's point, I remember in the original theatrical Justice League, it looked like, especially in the Joss Whedon scenes, Affleck just didn't want to be there. He just couldn't give a shit less. He was like, "What the fuck am I doing here? This is stupid. I hate this. I'll just drone out my lines, and then hopefully this will be over." But in this movie, he definitely seems to be more caring, involved, whatever, present in the proceedings for sure. So to your point, probably maybe he would come back. I don't know.
Yeah, we can just hope. I mean, we have no idea.
I'd heard that the bat signal scene was, I think, one of the only scenes that Snyder had done that remained in the Whedon cut, like untouched or untainted.
There is one scene where you like when Batman's standing on top of the thing, like James Gordon looks up and he sees Batman. In the Joss Whedon cut, he just looks up and he sees like a silhouette of Batman through the plastic, then Batman jumps down. Whereas in this, we get like a full shot of Batman like standing there in all his glory. So I don't know why they would cut that out, but they did.
And that also has that Barry Allen that's a little bit funny in that, you know, all the rest of them disappear and he's still there. He's like, oh, they're gone. Which makes sense because he's new to the team. He doesn't know where they're fucking going.
And like I think Barry's character, he's a bit cringy. Like that's how his character's just meant to be. Because like Snyder likes to do serious stuff, but I think a lot of he makes characters who do real stuff. And some of his characters, like he doesn't try to force comedy from every character like Joss Whedon did, but he makes his characters who are meant to have funny personalities be funny because that's just the way those characters are. You follow what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and it would be more
there's
natural.
a lot of
yeah.
There's a lot of cringy, try hard from every character in the Whedon cut.
Yeah, I think we all know some try hard, cringy people in real life, and they're always like that. I think Barry Allen's just someone like that because that's what Ezra Miller's personality in real life is as well. When he's not busy strangling people,
choke slamming women.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it kind of felt okay.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I thought that part was kind of funny.
The choke slamming women part.
No, the
favorite part
when they all disappear and the Flash, who's of course the fastest one, is still there.
Oh yeah,
and Gordon looks back and is like, "Oh, they're all gone."
Yeah.
That was
speaking
funny.
of the Flash, I was thinking of if we could do like talk about the highlights. Like, what was your favorite scene? What do you think was the most like impactful scene of the movie? I've got a few, but I'll listen to you guys.
Impactful.
Or just the strongest scene, or like your favorite scene.
I think Robert already mentioned it. It was that first sewer fight, right?
Yeah, it's the sewer fight was my favorite because it was a lot of sort of teamwork, but every single character had something interesting to bring to the table, physically and also a little bit mentally. And the scene seemed to be very well thought out. And in the original theater cut, it was like half of that, and it was not nearly as interesting. I think I don't know if they added stuff or what, but it was just a fully realized thing that I thought was the strongest piece in the whole thing. In terms of action, I mean, if you're going emotional, maybe the reunion with Ma Kent, except I always thought that they were doing way too much when they were doing Death of Superman plus BVS plus what was the name of the thing they fought in BVS? Doomsday and Darkseid and Steppenwolf. I just thought that they were doing way too much, so that when Superman died, it would like had zero emotional impact for me. But you know, when you've got and I'm not even a huge fan of Amy Adams's Lois Lane, but I still did see that, you know, reunion, the loss and the reunion. So that was at least a bit of a human moment for me. So I'll take those two.
All right, nice. What about you, Daniel? What do you got?
Well, I think I kind of liked fleshing out the Steppenwolf motivation, like you sort of mentioned earlier. When he's talking to Darkseid, it seems as if he's sort of in this weird spot where he had tried to, and they don't really tell us too much. Like you sort of have to know the backstory, but apparently Steppenwolf had tried to like deceive or usurp Darkseid. I'm sorry, Steppenwolf had tried to, but he's like his uncle, right? So there's like a bit of a family dynamic, and then Darkseid, I guess, is Darkseid's like right-hand man now.
He's like a servant, yeah.
And so, but he's sort of lording it over Steppenwolf, and so you can see Steppenwolf like struggling to try to get back into good graces, and it almost seemed like Steppenwolf was considering stabbing him in the back again, but that never develops. Like
I kind of I got the feeling like when he finds the anti-life equation that he might have tried to take it for himself.
Right.
Like that could have been one way they went with the plot, but it wasn't. I mean, either way would have been good for me. I would have liked either way.
Now, did Steppenwolf's size change throughout the movie? He seemed really big and imposing in some scenes, and then others not that much bigger than.
He seemed the same, virtually the same size to me. Maybe like he was seen at different angles. Like if he's holding someone down, he looks bigger. But then if he's standing like next side to side when Superman's flying next to him, he doesn't look as big.
I don't know, when he was fighting the Amazons and he was just like throwing horses around and stuff, he seemed like really big.
Yeah, and then later on when he's fighting in the final scenes, I mean, he's big, but he's not like that much bigger than, Cyborg or Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So something funny about like the DC fandom, everyone's liking Steppenwolf now, and everyone like jokes about how cute he was, and they have like pictures like this. Can you see that?
Sad Steppenwolf.
Yeah, and everyone just hates Darkseid. Everyone thinks Darkseid's a giant dick. I don't think it's just a funny thing, part of the fandom. There was this. Remember when, like, I think about a month or two ago, Zack released a clip of. It was a clip from the Amazon, the Steppenwolf versus Amazon scene. It was where he like slits a bunch of throats and throws the horses and kills a lot of Amazons. And a lot of people were calling it misogynist. It glorifies killing women or something. So there's a meme that Steppenwolf's a misogynist. I just felt like putting that out there.
I think he kills everybody equally, right?
He does. He does not give a fuck. But I just think it's a funny piece of. It's a meme, obviously. It's just a joke that like Steppenwolf's a misogynist, just making fun of the crazy woke people.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Misogynist Steppenwolf. Like we're doing it ironically, obviously.
Did you know that he killed 7 more Amazonians than he did Atlanteans? That's total sexism. It's true.
Yeah. So what's with those? Okay, so they're hiding the mother boxes, but there's like this air shaft looking down on it. So it's this impenetrable thing that's like set to detonate, self-destruct, fall into the sea. But they could have just swooped in super easy or boom tubed in as he did. It just seemed kind of weird. And then the Atlanteans had a similar thing where it didn't seem like all that well defended. And then men just like fucking buried
it.
Treasure.
I don't know. This was 5,000 years ago when they had that. Okay. And I think they kind of assumed if the boxes aren't together, then no one's going to have as much power over it. So if they just each of them guard the 3 or their own mother box, then they'd be safe. I don't think they knew what a boom tube was. If keep in mind, they hadn't used boom tubes to invade. Darkseid just came with his armada and invaded with the ships, and then retreated the same way. So none of them would have known what a boom tube would have been. Yeah.
Hey, you guys you want me to cram in some economics talk?
Yeah, it's about time. An hour and a half into our episode here.
All right, I'm just going to cram in a little bit, not a whole lot, but there was what was that YouTube channel? Economic Education Foundation, something or other. Fee. They did a piece on Wakanda, talking about how unrealistic it was, why Wakanda was so advanced and wealthy when they were completely isolated and they didn't trade with anybody, and how real wealth gets created through technology and development, but also
it's not through economic nationalism and like protectionist tariffs and stuff. I thought that was like
you would think, Shaheen, in which case, if that was true, then the Amazons would be the most wealthy society, the most technologically advanced, but instead in this movie they are still
it kind of shows how they're still like working on like farms and stuff.
They're like in the Bronze Age. They're still swinging swords and shooting arrows. So I appreciated that somewhat realistic take, even though I know it's a story and I know it's a comic book and I know they're supposed to be like a people out of time, but you remove yourself from trade and development and that kind of thing, and developments in technology, and you basically are this lost Amazonian tribe, which still exists in the world today. There's still people that are isolated and have never seen the modern world, and they've got spears and wood huts and straw huts and stuff like that. It's not Wakanda. It's Themyscira.
Themyscira, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting.
Except not like full of hot women, just kind of, yeah, it's kind of like, oh no.
Yeah, no, and I kind of like the take that those Themyscirans are super being warrior princess types, Shiras, yet they're stuck in that type of lifestyle because of their lack of advancement and because of their isolation. And
their racism and sexism.
Yeah, right. There's no men ever. Yeah, exactly.
Not allowed.
And then
they're not allowed.
They're not allowed. They built a wall.
Yeah,
what about all those men that got good ideas? Like dishwashers and laundry machines. Think about it, ladies.
Yeah. But and the corollary to that, of course, is that because we live in a society that has somewhat trade and isn't like super isolated, we have division of labor, we have specialization, and so we live as kings of years
compared to Amazonians,
right?
And we don't have to work on farms.
Caveat: the past 12 months, not so much. It's sort of reversed course a little bit.
No more division of labor. You have to do everything yourself.
We're still ahead of the Bronze Age.
Still beating the Amazons.
That's
all that matters. Steppenwolf would be proud. The eternal misogynist.
That's right.
For Darkseid.
Yeah. For Darkseid. Now, for me, my favorite, I like the end fight. I feel like every character had a time to shine in this. Like Wonder Woman had the fight at the museum against those crazy like reactionary terrorists at the beginning. Aquaman had the underwater fight where he saves Mera and fights Steppenwolf. Cyborg had he had his whole scene. Like the whole movie was about Cyborg pretty much. Like he had scenes throughout the movie. But then towards the end, Batman had the Batmobile, like in the final fight. I think another reason why a lot of it seemed generic is because a lot of those characters had already had their scenes. Aquaman had his water scene, Wonder Woman had her scene. So in the final fight, they were kind of just there to fight just parademons and Steppenwolf. Not necessarily to be elaborated on. But Batman had his tech, had the Batmobile, and he takes down the beacon, goes down, then flies out with the Batmobile. I like this Batmobile scene a lot more than the other one. The color palette was a lot better, and it showed them fucking up a lot more parademons. Like, there's a scene where one of them jumps on the car, he does a 180, and parademon gets impaled on something. I thought that was really cool. And obviously with all the gun stuff, that was cut from Joss Whedon. Just he just gets one gun and stands on top and just kind of shoots a few people. Whereas in this, he was blowing up. He was getting on turrets, shooting. He saved Wonder Woman from a few attacks. Then he blew it up, jumped down, shot a bunch more parademons. He was just going around, just killing all the parademons. And that leads to Superman coming. And I thought the scene where Superman drops down and fights Steppenwolf, the music even felt like the old classic Superman theme from John Williams. It kind of had more of a I forgot what the thing was called. I forgot what the instrument was called.
Like a fanfare?
Yeah.
Kind of brass and horns. And
yeah, horns. It was a lot more horny, so to speak.
Nice.
So then he lays at Steppenwolf's one of his things off, one of his spikes off, which was pretty cool. And then Darkseid comes, and obviously I like the fact that they actually fail, and they all pretty much die. But then Flash kind of turns back time. I thought that was a really great scene. I got goosebumps. When he's running and the explosion starts turning back, just goosebumps. And I've seen it a few times. That scene just never fails to give me goosebumps. And then he goes and touches Cyborg. Then Cyborg has his scene against the Mother Boxers, and then they kill Steppenwolf, and that's it. I thought that was a good way to an epic way to finish that off.
Yeah, no, I generally tend to agree. I thought that part was at least more interesting than just generic running around shooting and smashing up things. At least it had something happening that I hadn't seen before.
Just keep in mind, in 2017, the way they beat Steppenwolf is one woman smashes his axe, and then the parademons attack him for some reason, and he boom tubes out of there, and that's it. Which makes no sense at all, because they're his soldiers.
Because of the fear, they fear.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. They don't even really talk about them sensing fear in this one.
No.
But it was like a key point in the other one.
That seemed like a Whedon invention. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, in this one, like Superman just breathes on his axe and it shatters it. It's kind of badass move.
Does it pretty instantly.
I mean, I still think Superman's overpowered because he's like nothing can stop him. But
wait for Darkseid. Darkseid's stronger than Superman, especially now. Like in the 5,000 years ago, he wasn't, but now Darkseid's like a lot more powerful. Then when he gets the anti-life equation, it's like Superman's fucked. Nothing you can do.
It happens.
Interesting. Yeah, it would be great to see. It'd be great. Well, I think we should probably wind down this episode. We've been going really long, not nearly as long as this movie, but
about half as long.
About half as long, but almost twice as long as we would normally do an episode, so to speak. Robert, you're getting super pixelated, so would you like to lead us off while you still have some connection? No, I think he might be gone. No, there he is.
You guys are all freezing for me. This is not great.
All right, give it a go. I can hear you and see you. Yeah. Final summary review. How many batarangs you give this thing?
We didn't even see a battering. There was one batarang, and he threw it at Barry Allen, and he catches it, and then he says he wants to keep it. We didn't see like any of the bat gadgets really. It's just guns and cars and vehicles and things like that. I would have appreciated. I mean, he uses his grappling hook a couple of times. That's true, and he uses his like Krav Maga moves, which I appreciated. But I would have minded some smoke bombs, some shark repellent spray. Some good classic Batman stuff would have been fun. But I appreciate Zack Snyder's take on superheroes. I don't really particularly share it, but I think that there's definitely room for his take. I do appreciate his skills as a visual filmmaker. I appreciate that he enjoys the original graphic novels and tries to bring them to life. I really liked his. I'm a big Watchmen fan and a 300 fan, and a Sin City fan. I know that wasn't him, but in the same vein of bringing a graphic novel basically panel to panel to life is what they did there. So in this, like I've said, it's better, but it's not great. It's still suffers from all the things we talked about, lack of real narrative weight. Now, I think you can watch this movie and just have fun with it. It is just a big kind of schlocky, superhero-y, smash 'em up thing. It's not. I don't really see it as like this high art movie. I think it more of as like a popcorn schlockiness. Now, maybe Shaheen's going to take offense to that. That's fine. He can be totally offended. This is just my dumbass opinion. But I think that this is, I think I gave Justice League like a 4 or a 3. I mean, it was just really, really bad. But this is like a 6. This is watchable. If you got plenty of time, you can put it on in the background and watch it again. It's not bad, but it's not great. Okay. 6 parademons on a pear tree. I don't know. I don't know. I lost my analogy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you just reminded me of something that Batman says there needs to be 6 for some reason, just in the middle of the movie, and you're like, why 6?
Oh yeah, that's right. And he's like, there's only 5 of us. There just got to be 6. What is a random specific number? Okay.
I think he just meant that Superman, we need one more. Yeah, I think that was the point.
Yeah. Well, and the one more was Superman.
Yeah.
So I think he counted more than any of the others I think. Superman.
Yes, Superman would have done everything in this movie all by himself, no problem.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with creating God characters in movies. I think they're just way too overpowered and they're less interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, so a 6 from Robert, which lines up with the amount of members of Justice League, which is great. I too appreciate that Zack Snyder was able to see his vision come into being. However, I do think that perhaps in the intervening years, he has maybe had a bit more time to overindulge a little bit once they threw $70 million his way. I think that this could have been a little bit of a shorter movie. I know that part of me appreciates like the setting, the scene, and the more quiet moments in this because it makes it paces the movie differently. I mean, granted, it's like super long and it is broken up quite a bit. So it is a difficult movie to get through all in one go unless you're a super fan like our buddy here, Shaheen. But I do appreciate that it exists. I appreciate it got made. I appreciate that there is a recognition of the fans and their clamoring for something and wanting something, and the studio actually coming through on it. Now, I know that it was a series of events that made it happen. I know they took out billboards. They had big social media campaigns. And I think HBO Max, they promoted this like a year ago when they first launched. And I remember that was one of the reasons that I even got it. So, you know, it's a clever marketing thing as well to give something that has a lot of like fan attraction to, and I think it worked out. I think it's definitely improvement on the previous one. So I will also give it 6 mother boxes out of 10 on this. So Shaheen.
Sure, 2 worlds over with that. 6 mother boxes.
That's right.
2 unities. All right. So obviously I'm the big DC fan guy. I've been pretty much waiting for this movie since BVS dropped 5 years ago, and JL was not canon. Isn't canon to me. If they want to make a DC, like if they want to continue this universe, but without like the Batman, Superman, Justice League, and like Zack's vision, I'm still a big DC fan. I'll probably maybe watch some movies, but I'm just not that interested in like the next Suicide Squad or Harley Quinn movie. If they restore the Snyderverse and they actually tell this story, because like I like DC characters and stuff, as long as my favorite ones are there. So I'll watch that if like the other stuff, if this is there as well. But like for them to just say, oh, this is a cul-de-sac and has no potential is pretty fucking stupid, considering like Wonder Woman 84, it did okay. And they greenlit Wonder Woman 3 right after, like a few days after it dropped. But this has been like blowing that out of the water, but it's still not being like, oh, we want to move away from this, which I think is stupid. I enjoyed it as a film. It's an epic film, kind of a Lord of the Rings of superheroes. I like that Zack takes DC characters kind of seriously. Yeah, they are kind of like if Marvel's like humans who kind of act like gods, this is gods who act like humans. And I think a lot of the interesting stories you can tell about these characters is, like, yeah, they are very powerful, but then you introduce villains who are just as powerful, or like machinations that could potentially kill them or like destroy the world to the point where their powers aren't going to help them. I don't know, like you focus more on the human elements of them. Like with like in BVS, Superman dealt with not being accepted. Batman had to deal with I don't know, a lot
Being
of
really
hatred and angry and full of hate. And so each of them has things they can work on. Although I think it would be cool to see not necessarily nerfed a little bit, but have more defined weaknesses and see like the bad guys exploit that more. That's something I would personally enjoy more. This movie, it wasn't as deep as something like Batman v Superman. I still think that was a more philosophically deep movie. It kind of hits a bit harder for me, although I just still do think this is the definitive way to watch Justice League. Because at the end of the day, well, there are some things I personally would have liked a bit different, maybe here and there, maybe a bit shorter, maybe a bit more like Bat Gadget scenes. But at the end, it is Zack's vision, and I respect his vision as a filmmaker. And I still thought it was a really good movie. As a DC fan, I enjoy it, and I'd probably give it like 8.5 batarangs
All
in
right.
the belt. Yeah,
in the utility belt. Very good.
Indeed.
Very good. I remember the 2017 theatrical cut and seeing the trailer for it with the updated version of the Beatles come together and thinking that was really good. Like that trailer just made it look awesome, and then the movie was just terrible. When they do the final assault, I got vibes of that trailer in watching this version. So
yeah, those trailers were notorious for being better to watch than the movie. Like back in 2017, everyone was like, they had a Comic-Con trailer that was really cool. That was probably my favorite one.
There was an amazing Suicide Squad trailer, I want to say.
Oh yeah,
was way better than the movie.
See, if we restore the Snyderverse, we get David Ayer's original Suicide Squad. If you watch his other movies like Fury or Bright or Tax Collector, they're a lot different than what the Suicide Squad we got was, because they wanted Suicide Squad to be more like Deadpool, kind of funny. So they gave the editing up to some sort of trailer company, and they kind of try to make it like that's why it kind of feels like a music video. It feels like it's just snapshots of people like doing cool shit, like Deadshot and like Margot Robbie and Harley Quinn just doing whatever, and then bad guy, that's the end. It was meant to have a lot more heart and be able to have a more coherent plot, which hopefully we can one day see as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I did not even watch Suicide Squad because of Robert's 30-second review on one of our episodes. He also reviewed Dunkirk in the next 30 seconds. So he did 2 reviews in 1 minute, and did not recommend either of those movies.
Yeah, those were both were real bad. Both wastes of time. I remember. Yeah, I think I watched both in the same night, and then I think I actually watched 3 movies. Those 2, and then I forget the third one, but the third one was really good. I think it was the one where you're Get Out. Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, right. It might have been on our Get Out episode actually, where we were talking about that.
Well, yeah, it could be.
Yeah, it's on the HBO Max. When you look at Snyder Cut, there's a couple little bonus extras, and one of them is Snyder talking about other movies you can watch on HBO Max that he enjoys, and Dunkirk is one of them.
Have you seen Dunkirk, Daniel?
I have not. Based on your review,
I haven't either. I thought it was a good movie. I only heard good things about it. It's a Nolan.
I know a lot of people like it. A lot of people like it, but they were just faceless soldiers that I didn't care about doing uninteresting things. It was the biggest nothing of a movie I time up to that point.
How would you compare it with 1917? Would you think 1917 is better? I haven't seen either, but okay.
I've heard good things about 1917. Like it's just one big long giant shot that's cool. I know the general premise, but no, I haven't seen it. I've heard the execution's pretty good.
I'll have to check that out when
it comes to streaming, or I don't know if it is. If it comes to like HBO Max or something, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, it'll probably be on something eventually. We can do it.
What do you guys have? What services do you guys use for streaming? Just HBO?
I have so many I can't even keep count. I have HBO. I have Disney. I have whatever comes with my internet plan. I think it's Peacock, maybe.
Okay.
I've got Hulu.
I haven't heard of that one.
And I've got a thing called Canopy, which is run through the library.
Okay, nice.
Tax dollars at work.
And I've got the HBO and the Amazon Prime, and I think a few others. But those
Amazon Prime too. Yeah.
We don't have HBO Max here. We have something called Binge. Pretty much get a lot of HBO shows. So we got the Snyder Cut on that, and I have that in Netflix. All I really watch is like DC stuff and South Park anyway. Like I only have time for like 20-minute episodes here and there, so I'm happy with it.
Right? Yeah. The wife and I, we've been watching old episodes of Sunny in Philadelphia recently.
Okay, my brother watches that. I watched a few of that. I watched the introduction to Danny DeVito. Oh, there's an episode where they some Jewish guy comes and buys the venue, their bar, and so they make like a jihad tape. They blow up the guy's house, and like the place has a gas leak. They throw like a piece of burning dog shit in there, and like it blows up the place. And then the police come, they find the jihad tape. They'll have to go to jail. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. There's like another episode where one of the characters, he goes to like an anti-abortion rally, and he finds this really like hardcore Christian girl, and then he ends up like he goes there to get with her, and then they have sex. She's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." It's like, "You need to get an abortion." That was just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in so long. I don't remember the first one you mentioned. I think that second one is vaguely familiar from years back. We're on, I think, season 7, because that's where we thought we had left off about 10 years ago.
This is like season 1 and 2, because I just watched a bit from the beginning.
All right, yeah. I mean, it's hilarious. I would imagine that a lot of it couldn't be really done today or made today.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but anyway,
it's hilarious.
This has been a lot of fun, man. I know you got to get going pretty soon here.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
great to be on.
Yeah, and our episode is almost 2 hours long. Our audience, we're not going to bore you too much longer here, but next week we might, because we're going to have the return of the Anarcho Christian, and we're going to be doing another epic film, Ben-Hur. This will be an Easter episode. We've had the Anarcho Christian on a couple Easters in a row, and it's always one of these like epic movies from the 50s. We did The Robe last year, and what was the one before that? I know we had talked about doing the 10 Commandments with him.
We did, what was it? The
Thing.
The one with,
come on, man.
Where Jesus gets the crap beat out of him.
Oh, the Passion of the Christ. That's right. Yeah, that one's not so old. Okay. All right. Well, I stand corrected. But anyway, we're doing another one with him, and those are always a lot of fun. So do join us next week for that. And, support the show in any way you can. Give us likes and subscribes on YouTube and or Anchor or other podcatcher type things. Give us reviews, things like that. Hit us up on the Patreon. Go to lastnerds.com/Patreon. Give us some money there. Check out Trubster.com. That's Robert's website, and he has multiple artistic things that are purchasable in clothing and other type items. Is that about accurate? I haven't been on there in a while. Shirts,
yeah,
mugs,
that's yeah. You could just slap some stuff on whatever you want and you buy it. It's like a merch thing.
Okay, yeah. So get some merch. Support some merch. Oh, I do have one more thing. This came the other day. If you're watching on the YouTube, here, let me make this bigger. The
you said
Voluntarist Origins just came out, and it's got these two Weisenheimers in the back. Oh, yeah, there you can see it now. You can see it now? Yeah. That's our ad right on the back. Pretty badass. So check that out. Go to volcomic.com to get your issue and all past issues. We are in there for the 4th time. We were the centerfold 3 times in a row, and now we're on the back cover spread.
Cool. Nice. I missed all that. So great.
All right. Perfect. Well, that's our show tonight, everyone. So check it out at lastnerds.com/169. Ha ha ha. And we'll see you guys all next week for Ben-Hur. Shaheen, if you can stick around just a little bit longer, we do the Kathleen Turnover Drive for the Patreon bonus types. And with that, we'll say good night from last night, everyone. Release the Snyderverse. Or what was the thing? Get back to the Snyderverse?
Yeah, restore the Snyderverse. Yeah.
Restore the Snyderverse. All right. We'll be right back.